But I would say this for us as ball players, especially ones that were blessed to make it all the way to the NFL, we're used to the chips being stacked against us. We're used to finding a way to still be successful.
Right.
And it's not always easy, but we're used to that. We're built that way. That's why we made it to the top of the top and the best of the best. Everybody has flaws. Michael Jordan has flaws, but he figured out a way to still be successful in spite of those flaws.
And still be at the top of his game.
And still be at the top.
What's up, people? Welcome to Crockett's Corner, and I'm here with an exciting episode. I know you're used to seeing myself and my guy, Ro Paris. Well, Ro's not here today. You know why? Because I'm going to give you a bump and run intimate segment with my guy. This guy now, coming from North Carolina. Yeah, I said North Carolina. I know you guys know it's a basketball college, but this guy played defensive end at North Carolina and dominated. 3-time ACC. Ended up getting drafted to the Cowboys, Pro Bowl, comeback player of the year. He's done it all, and he's also transitioned into the world of entertainment, just like I did. So I figured, you know what, Mr. Greg Ellis, I wanted to do a bump and run intimate segment, get up close and personal with my guy. How you doing, man? Welcome to Crockett's Corner.
Man, thanks for having me. Appreciate you having me up here.
Man, first and foremost, let's just get right to it because we don't have long, but your story is something that I wanted to spend a lot of time on. You started off in Wendell, North Carolina.
Yep,
Big city. Big city, Wendell, North Carolina. Big guy, 6'6". End up playing defensive end at North Carolina. I know there's no way you missed basketball.
You're correct.
Tell me a little bit about that. How'd you start? How'd you started out on the court?
Well, I played basketball, started in the 8th grade. Started playing football in the 7th grade, so a little more football. But, you know, coming out of high school, had options to go play basketball. Obviously had more to play football. At basketball.
So wait, you said that real quickly. Okay. You had options. What does that mean? You had scholarships
to
play basketball and football?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a big feat.
That's a big feat?
Yeah, that's not small.
Here's what I can say about it. You may know a guy named Bucky Brooks. Remember Bucky Brooks? His dad was my AAU basketball coach. Okay. And so he helped me to something. He said, Greg, at 6'6", you know, you're playing basketball, you're like a forward and center here in high school. But at 6'6", trying to go to the NBA, you're gonna have to be guard. Yeah, exactly, right.
You're a 2
and
or 3.
My shooting game wasn't that strong.
so you was more of a rebounder,
put back. You know, excited about dunking on people and that kind of stuff. But I never, you know, tried to develop fully as a basketball player. I chose football. Right. When I got to Carolina, though, under the scholarship of football, the great Dean Smith sent word and wanted me to come out to play basketball.
Really?
So
a little double duty.
Yep. So now I did it on his junior varsity basketball team. Played basketball there.
I didn't know that. Colleges have junior varsity?
Oh, yes.
I thought you once you got to college, you either made it or you didn't. So they actually have a junior varsity.
So it's a developmental kind of situation.
Okay.
And so my first year, I did all the practices and all the games with the junior varsity squad. That next year, he would pull me up to practice with the varsity squad. That was the years Vince Carter was there, Antoine Jamison. Those guys were there.
Oh, you had some studs.
Yes, had some real ball players there. After that season was over, he told me, he said, Greg, I want you to come back next year for the varsity squad. I opted not to. I told him I would. But I figured, you know what, my requirements, duties that were needing to be met on the football field was getting really serious.
And you were getting really good.
And getting, you know, okay at playing football.
Yeah.
Needed to continue to get stronger on the football field. And so I just, you know, old school country people say, I knew what side my bread was buttered on. Right. So I obligated my time to playing football.
And see, that's what I was going to ask you as well, because I kind of did something similar, not with basketball wise, but as far as running track at Baylor. But we did have a guy, James Francis, who was a number 1 draft pick in football, played defensive end, played linebacker, but he played basketball. But I noticed the thing about him was that he never really got strong until he stopped doing double duty.
Yes.
So with you being a defensive end, that had to have affected you on the football field when you started thinking, okay, I got a real good shot not just to be a NFL player, but to be a number 1 pick, a top 10 pick.
Correct.
So you had to make a decision.
Had to make a decision. You know what I mean? It was fun playing basketball. I loved it, doing both of those sports. But, I got to a point in my life to realize, okay, now, what are you going to do here? You know what I mean? In the position that you play, it's not like a receiver, right? You have to be exceptionally strong in order to go to that next level where you want to be at in football. So obligating the time during the off season in that weight room was key to me in being successful on the football field.
So talk about this now. This is North Carolina. I know you guys, like I said, out there who watch a lot of college sports. North Carolina's playing better now. Yes. Since they got the guy from Texas and all, But North Carolina is predominantly known for basketball. Yes. There's only one guy that most of us know that came from North Carolina, and I'm sure you know this guy, Lawrence Taylor.
Lawrence Taylor.
What was he? I guess when you think about one, was North Carolina the biggest school that recruited you as far as for football? And did Lawrence Taylor have anything to do with you making that decision to go?
He didn't have anything to do with it. I've never met Lawrence Taylor, believe it or not. So I might need to pull on your coattail.
That's shocking.
But I would say this. I had other schools recruiting me, big schools recruiting me. I'm not going to say the school I probably would have went to, but I would say this. North Carolina was closer to my home where I actually grew up at. It wasn't the closest school I could have went to, but it was one that I grew up a fan of, just the North Carolina school, period. Not necessarily a football fan.
Right, just the school in general.
School, period. Largely because of the basketball program, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
But, getting there was great, man. Enjoyed every moment that I was there. And I would say this too, right? Mac Brown actually was my coach.
So Mac was at North Carolina, because I thought he's at North Carolina, then went to Texas and came back.
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
Perfect.
So all of my years there at Carolina, Mac Brown was our coach. And so his years when we were there, the program actually gained some national recognition.
Right.
My year I got drafted, we had 3 first rounders that one year off our defense. A guy named Brian Simmons.
Wow.
Drafted, I think, either 15 or 20 to Cincinnati. Vonnie Holiday drafted
I remember
like 19 or something like that to Green Bay. And then myself drafted that same year, number 8 to, of course, to Dallas. Jeff Saturday, who's the head coach of the Colts, was on that team as well.
Wow.
So, we had some ball players for that span of time, if you would.
So you guys were a little bit like Baylor.
Yes.
Like when we had Grant Teff. We had Grant Teff. We had ball players. We had all kind of ball. Then we fell off.
Yes.
Okay.
Identical.
Yeah, so and Baylor's probably known more for basketball.
Yes, that's what I said. It's really identical. When you say that. Exactly.
So talk about that. You mentioned that you ended up going to number 8 to the Cowboys from North Carolina. You're in Wendell, North Carolina, like you said, a big city. Big city of Wendell. Then you go to North Carolina. Now, here's the culture shock. Here's the change. Okay. I know for a fact because I'm from Dallas. And during this time, this is toward the latter part of my career. We had just won the Super Bowl in Denver when you got drafted. I remember vividly them announcing, and there was some hoopla about should they have taken a defensive end? Should they have? I'm sure you went through all that.
Yes.
But then you get the star on your helmet. And there's expectations here.
Yes,
because the Cowboys were not far removed from the triloquy of the Super Bowls and all the things that went through with Aikman and all those guys. What was that like for you coming from Carolina, a small city and then a small school compared to football wise, and then the big star?
It was pressure. It was pressure on top of pressure on top of pressure because, like you said, I got drafted. I remember a reporter asked me, he said, man, Greg, what do you think about the Cowboys not making the playoffs this year? That year, they didn't make the playoffs.
Right.
And I remember responding to him, Ray. I said, they're the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to make it. They're going to be back.
Yeah, they'll be back. They'll respond. Yeah.
And according to Jerry Jones, I'm one of those missing pieces that they just drafted to help them get back. And so there was a tremendous amount of pressure that I put on myself that was there, if you would. The big city, the everything Cowboys, everywhere you turn, it was Cowboys, 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 Cowboys.
Right.
And so that influx of just dumping me into that huge media pool. It was something to handle, man.
Because it's a big pool of fish here when you come to Dallas.
You're exactly right.
Everywhere you turn in Dallas, if you are a Cowboy, everybody knows it.
Yes.
One. And especially being a top 10 pick.
Oh, yeah.
Because back then, Dallas didn't have many top 10 picks.
No.
So for you to be a top 10 pick, they expect you to come out and blow the world up right away.
Exactly.
And if that doesn't happen,
yes.
what kind of, I guess for your first 3 or 4 years,
yes, how
was that for you?
It was a lot. Now, the good thing about it was, playing defensive end and playing D-line, it's not like a receiver or secondary guys. It's harder to start because it's brute force versus brute force, and little bitty technique stuff can really get you beat in a bad way.
Right.
And so to be able to make it past, that was my first mark, if you would, to come in and start. And I know what you're thinking is like, okay, well, you're a first pick, so you had to start. But still, you have to be able to have enough about yourself that you can hold down that position. And so once I saw them saying, okay, he meets that criteria. I remember Troy Aikman saying, Troy probably won't remember this. We were in the training room, and Troy said, Jimmy or Barry came around. They wasn't the coach anymore. I think it was Barry. And we were somewhere. Troy told Jimmy Johnson, he said, Greg is one of the guys that could have played when we were winning Super Bowls.
Oh, they could have played on those teams.
Could have played on those teams.
Right.
Troy probably won't remember that. But that meant a lot to me because it says, okay, this guy is a Super Bowl guy. This guy was the heart of the Super Bowl teams.
And coming from that guy.
Saying that meant a lot to me. So I felt like, okay, I can play at this level. I can contribute to this football team. And I like to think that I did contribute to that football team.
Oh, of course.
But yes. It was a lot
like
of
84 sacks. I think so. So now the average defensive end does not just go out and get 84 sacks, no matter what kind of career you had.
Yeah.
But for you, just I'm listening to you, and even though you didn't get the success on the field as far as team wise. To hear somebody, a Hall of Famer like Troy Aikman say, this guy could have been on the teams that were winning multiple Super Bowls, the dynasty team, that had to make you feel a certain way and make you want to play a certain way, even though you guys weren't getting the results.
It did. Now, it brought about a lot of sleepless nights for me, to be honest with you, because I wanted us to be that playoff team. I wanted us to be that Super Bowl team that they were of past.
Right.
But my career never produced that, if you would. But individual records and things like that, I was blessed to be successful.
You was all pro. You was comeback player of the year. Which those are two big awards. For one, I'm letting the fans know. For one, to make all pro and to be a Pro Bowler, you have to ball out.
Yeah.
But then to make comeback player of the year, that means you had trial and tribulations, which is what this platform is all about. That means something happened, and let's talk about that, where you had to pivot and you got injured, and then you had to take some time off the field and come back. Talk a little bit about that, because that was a tough situation for
that's
you.
A story in itself, man, because I was in Arizona. We was in Arizona playing the Cardinals, and I'm playing D-line, go around this guy, think I'm going to get a sack, and all of a sudden I just fall to the ground. Felt like somebody stepped on the back of my heel. And you know what that is.
Achilles.
It's like, what in the world? And so they cart me into the locker room, and the doctor put his hands on my leg. He said, Greg, you had a nice career. And I'm like, well, can we fix it?
Wow. Wait.
Yeah, that was it. That's what he said to me. He said, Greg, and I love the doctor.
And this was year what for you?
Man, that was year probably like 8.
Yeah, because you had made all pro already and was going on to a solid career.
I didn't make the Pro Bowl yet.
Oh,
I've been alternate several times.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. So I remember you being
Michael Strahan and those kind of guys, right?
Yeah, me too. I understand that alternate.
Exactly. But so at my age, 30-something, right? And as you know, especially D-line, like the career's supposed to be over by now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what that doctor meant. I said, well, can we fix it? He said, no, we can fix it. That's not going to be a problem. He said, but your size, your position you play,
you'll never be the same.
You'll never be the same.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Smith, you remember Pup?
And he was never the same.
He was never the same.
And I can speak honestly. I mean, my nephew, same thing. He took a little different to his ACL.
Yeah.
But Achilles, ACL, those, when you talk about the lower extremities
yeah.
for bigger guys.
For bigger guys, it's like that's
your explosion leaves you and your lateral movement leaves you, so it becomes really tough.
Yeah.
So what did you feel about that though? Because I know you're a God-fearing man.
Yeah.
You're a man that, spirituality is big.
Yes.
You're probably in your mind, did that, I guess, in your mind, did you think, yes, this may happen, or did you say, nah, you don't have the last word? That man does.
That man does. Ray, to be honest with you, I never really thought about it until you asked me this question right now. Because as now that you're asking me and I'm thinking about it, I never focused on that. I never focused on what the doctor said. And I have tremendous respect for that doctor. He does surgery on my kids still to this day if they hurt themselves. So it's no bad blood there. But I never focused on that. I simply focus on one day at a time. My trainer I had was Brett Brown, who's still with the Cowboys today. And I focus on doing every single thing that he prescribed for me to do. I never missed not one rep of doing whatever he told me to do. If he said get in the cold tub for 10 minutes, I stayed in there for 10 minutes. It wasn't 9 minutes and 30 seconds. I did every single thing that those doctors and trainers asked me to do. And I was blessed to get back out there, man.
And it worked out. Well, we're going to talk about how it worked out when we come back, because that is a big transition and a big pivot that happened. And he was fortunate enough to make it through it. There's trials and tribulations, even for a top 10 pick in the draft. We'll talk about it when we get back. This is Crockett's Corner, where the block is always hot. Welcome back to Crockett's Corner, and I'm here with my guy, Greg Ellis, top 10 pick to the Dallas Cowboys. And we were talking about the transition that you had to make in the trials and tribulation that you had to go through after being injured, and the possibility of not being able to play again, and what went on with your mind. Well, you were able to play again, unlike what the doctor told you, and ended up making it to the Pro Bowl. And here's the crazy thing is this: after being a Pro Bowl alternate, while you were healthy, explosive, and young, and not making it, then go through this kind of catastrophic injury and end up making it. What kind of feeling was that like?
It was amazing, man. I tell people, I tell people, I'm not trying to get religious with them, but I have to give all that credit to God. And the reason why, Ray, because I was coming back that year, but I missed all the training camps. So I missed all the mini camp stuff, missed all the training camp stuff, missed the first 3 games, man, and come back game number 4. And
so you basically made the Pro Bowl in a third of the season.
Yes.
Making it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, they drafted a first rounder to take my place. You know how that goes. And still being able to stay there, having the best season I've ever had in football. And so I tell people all hands have to point to God when stuff like that happens, man.
Yeah, and like you said, I understand. I was a Pro Bowl alternate. I was all pro twice, never made the Pro Bowl. So I understand that feeling. So it's kind of like, what was the lady's name who runner up for the Oscars and never. So and that kind of, I guess for you, that kind of summed up your career, because really you end up playing 12 years, which anytime you play over a decade in the NFL, everybody know the NFL stands for not for long. The average is about 3 years. And for someone like you to play 12 years after being told around year 8 or whatever that you may not play any longer, were you ready to retire? Because that's a big transition within itself.
No. Yeah. I think most guys, when it comes, as you try to be prepared for it, but it's really not a one way to 100% be prepared for it, in my opinion. I remember when I got released by Dallas, because I only played 1 year with
the Raiders.
With the Raiders. And so I get released by Dallas.
And wait, let me just ask you this. What is this closeness with the Raiders and Dallas? You guys practice against each other, but a lot of guys that leave Dallas, Larry Brown was one as well. You end up going to the Raiders. What is that infatuation with
I think it's an Al Davis and a Jerry Jones thing.
Oh, the boys.
I think it's that.
Is it because they're cool, or was it because?
Cool. They're cool.
Okay.
They're
okay,
cool.
Good,
they're
good.
cool. They're cool.
Okay.
Al taught Jerry a lot. Well, at least taught to him. I won't use the word taught, But I think influences and helped Jerry a lot when he came into the league.
Okay, because the league is an old boy network.
Yeah,
we all know that.
We all know that.
Yeah,
exactly.
So it kind of gave you another year. Okay, go
exactly,
ahead.
Exactly.
I just wanted to get there.
I appreciate that extra year. No, I appreciate it. Exactly. And so, going out there, man. Well, when I got released by the Cowboys, that's what I was talking about. And so I had started in business, just small businesses doing photography and things like that. We used to do school photography, the yearbooks, the kids' pictures and all that stuff. And so I never forget, man. And finally I'm on the field because they, how they're trying to stall you out and try to see if they're going to trade you and all that stuff. And so we gave them a week to see what they're going to do and nothing happened. So I go back out there and say, okay, I'm going to practice. Oh, wait a minute. If you get hurt, then we got to be responsible.
We got to keep
so they wouldn't do that.
Right.
So anyway, Jerry comes out there and said, Greg, this is getting awkward, man. So we're going to go ahead and let you go. And I said, Mr. Jones, I appreciate it, man. I left there, man, and went to one of the ladies used to work for me with the pictures business. And I went and picked up a pack of pictures, going to take them to this daycare. And she said, what are you doing here? You supposed to be in practice. I said, well, I just got released. She's like right now, you just got released?
Right.
And you're going to go take some pictures to this
daycare? And they don't understand that.
Yeah. She's
they don't understand that life goes on.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah.
But I did have that feeling of, wow, what comes next? Right. And I thank God I had started in the business. And I encourage guys, man, get started in something.
Yes.
While you playing, you're not going to need the money.
I'm the same way. I tell guys, prepare for war in time of peace.
Exactly.
Because peacetime is when you're making that football money.
Yes.
But when you're done, the war begins.
Yeah. So start something and make sure you don't, dump a whole lot of money into it.
Right.
But, go ahead and start throwing your nets out there, man, and getting started in something so you can have something when football is over. You're like, okay, I'm going to just go deliver these pictures.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that kind of spun me into that next career thing, if you would.
So when you say into the next career, you had a promise, like I said, you had a great career. I mean, and 84 sacks for a defensive end is a great career. All-Pro is a great career. Comeback Player of the Year. All of that is a great career. Yes. So that sums it up. Yeah. So now the transition begins because people don't understand. Everybody thinks, especially with me, because I played a decade and a half, played a long time. They automatically think you're set for life. Yeah. Like you don't have to do anything else. Not knowing that part of the transition and part of playing football is keeping your mentals going.
Oh, yeah.
So for you, you're mixing it up. You guys hit every play. And I always tell people, I had some problems, with mental health after I retired. And I was out on the edge.
Yes.
Guys that are inside, they have it either. Some guys, quite frankly, have problems during their career. Yeah. It doesn't wait until they're done. So what about you? Were you fortunate enough to make it through with everything or did you suffer anything?
I've had some concussions, some major concussions while I was playing. They do affect me, and I do my best to, keep living my life. A big part of me is a lot of anxiety.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, me too.
And so I'll just break out in sweats, man, and it's awkward, to be honest with you. But I do my best to continue to live a normal life as much as I can. But I always have a towel with me because I'll just break out and just sweat profusely. And then it'll stop. And people are like, well, what just happened? It's like, don't even worry about it. Let's just keep going. You know what I mean?
And that's what I wanted to ask you about because for me, I've diagnosed with depression and anxiety and actually was total and permanent disabled by the NFL. Yeah. That label, which that's not a label you want. Yeah. Even though you get paid, but it's not a label you want.
That's right.
So I was labeled that. For you, how awkward is that to talk about? Because that's what my problem was. Yeah. My problem was explaining to people, one, what anxiety is, and two, how it makes you feel.
Yeah. Well, it's for me, it's like a racing thing that goes on. And my mind would just start thinking about everything in the world. And I'm helping myself by paying attention to my body. Mm-hmm. And I try to kind of home it down and focus on fewer things. I have to force myself to get locked back into whatever is going on. And once I do that, the sweat stops, the heart rate comes back down. But it is a conscious effort that I have to make to do that. Where for lack of better terms, normal people, you don't have to sit there and force yourself to focus and come back into something small, if you would. But I always, even on your show, I keep this towel.
So just in case.
Just in case, you know what I mean?
So what does that do as far as with your business? Because you were fortunate like myself, you had a great career and made some great money and had opportunities to do some different things. Yeah. You chose to go into entertainment. Yep. You chose to go into movies and plays. I call you the Tyler Perry of Dallas.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So and so let's talk about that a little bit. How, one, the anxiety affects you doing that part of your career, because it has to, like you said, you have to wake up every day and really approach it.
Yes.
How does that help you, or how does it hurt you when you're doing your business now?
So part of what I do when it comes to the plays, this is a kind of a minute detail, but it kind of will answer your question, if you would, in a very good way, I think. So as you said, I do stage production plays as well. And so I interject myself in them really to help with, bringing attention to that program that we're doing. And so this one character that I portray is really like myself. I put on some funny looking, colorful shorts, the old church socks and my old Cowboy jersey. Like, I'm that retired player that don't want to let it go, right? But what I had to work into it, Ray, was part of my wardrobe is to always have a towel when I'm playing that part. Now, so so my lines are written in to say, okay, I'm coming from working out.
Okay.
So when I'm sweating,
right,
it's like, okay, well, he's coming from working out. That's why he's sweating. It's like, no, probably my anxiety is high. And so 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be sweating when I'm on the stage. So I just wrote that into the script.
So it's a cover up.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about that as well, because that's something I found myself doing. And a lot of us do as far as players.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to come to grips with saying we have a problem.
Oh, yes.
So we do a lot, we mask it, as they say. We put that facade out there and we put that cover up out there. How is that? Is that difficult for you?
It's difficult because I have to make a conscious effort to make sure I'm doing it, right? To calculate it, if you would. But I would say this for us as ball players, especially ones that were blessed to make it all the way to the NFL, we're used to the chips being stacked against us. We're used to finding a way to still be successful.
Right.
And it's not always easy, but we're used to that. We're built that way. That's why we made it to the top of the top and the best of the best. Everybody has flaws. Michael Jordan has flaws, but he figured out a way to still be successful in spite of those flaws.
And still be at the top of his
game.
And
still be at the top.
Yeah. And speaking of that, in your transition into film and into plays, at the top of your game, you definitely was on this project. Okay. One project that I was really happy that you brought to life, because it was a project here that I'm very familiar with, and it was the Carter High Boys.
Correct.
And I want to talk about that, because that's something that you and I, fortunate enough, we actually went to church together. We actually go to church together.
Yeah.
So we're really close in that fashion, and we're really spiritual as well.
Correct.
That's a story that I never, even though I've executive produced some projects, I never thought about telling that story. You came along and told it and did it in a good way.
Thank you.
What brought that to your attention, and what made you want to really talk about that story?
So when I started, like I said, starting in pictures, we were doing commercials. And when you're doing that kind of business, as you know, you contract people out to film stuff for you. This one guy named Arthur Jordan Muhammad, he was a guy that used to film stuff for me. And he actually went to Carter, played on the Carter. Now, he didn't make it to the league. I think he ended up going to SMU, and that's the farthest he got. But he was on that Carter football team. He writes. He had the script about the Carter High movie.
Oh, okay.
And so I seen some of Arthur's work, and I told him I like his work. I said, man, I want to take that step and go ahead and do a feature, full movie. And one thing led to another. I found out about his script that he had not heard about Carter, but I didn't know he actually had a script about it.
Right.
Saw that, man. We talked about it, and we said, let's do it. Let's put it all together and let's do it. People said, what still made you want to do that movie as your first big major first project? Ray, I like helping people. And to me, the best way you can help people is help people to become educated and enlighten about the right topics.
Right.
And that movie right there, it helps kids to, and adults too, to understand no matter how talented you are at doing something, you still have to comply with the rules.
Right. Yeah, there's still rules and regulations.
And when you choose not to comply, this is what can happen to you. Carter was a good example of that, I think.
And that pivot in life can be tough.
Tough.
You're talking about, just to tell America a little bit about this story, Dallas Carter, state champions, had a bunch. When I say probably 19 D1 players on one squad, probably one of the most talented squad ever in the history of high school football. Yeah. And these guys decided to drive around and rob.
That's right.
Convenience stores and restaurants and all kind of, but really not just rob them, but do it as a play, because they was doing it with fake guns and stuff. So they were really doing it in a for fun thing, like we're untouchable type thing.
Yes.
So how difficult when you talk to the parents, because I know you had to do a full blown research.
Oh yeah.
How did that leave the parents? Because people don't understand, not just the players, but families were scarred about this story.
It's because you have to put yourself in their shoes, right? And these guys had scholarships, already signed letters of intent.
Yeah, they were signing them in hot tubs and everywhere.
Yeah, right. You can still Google that in real life and see them in the hot tub signing this letter. So these kids were already set, ready to go. And so to have that door slammed in their face, as a parent, it's not about their kids going to the NFL. It's about, okay, my kid is coming up in a predominantly African-American community. And in those days especially, he's going to get the opportunity to go to a Division I college. Not the football part of it,
right?
But a education at the collegiate level. That's what's more important to the parents. Exactly. And to have that door shut in your face, to go from, okay, you're going here to play football and to have an opportunity to get a great education, to you're going to spend 14 years in jail now.
Right. Man.
Could you imagine that?
I couldn't imagine. And that's what we want to talk about. And that's why I love my platform. And I love having guys like you on, because we get to talk about and we get to educate some of these kids that no matter what you do and how talented you are, there's still choices and decisions. And those choices and decisions have consequences. And in this case, it was a life or death consequence. And we'll talk about that when we get back. This is Crockett's Corner. Welcome back to Crockett's Corner. And like I said, the block is definitely hot. And this is a hot topic because this is a topic that I love to talk about and that my guy Greg is really big on. And this is for the kids. This is for the high school kids, the college kids. Because there's a lot of kids now, man, they think with social media, they think that their choices and their decisions, they get to skate by. And it's even escalated more now because everybody sees your choices and your decisions. And they do have consequences. We're talking about the Carter High guys. And just imagine, I always talk about this when I see some of those guys. Imagine if social media would have been back then.
Oh, boy.
What would that have done to their situation? Because there was a couple of guys, like you said, that did some hard time in jail, that spent a long time in jail. But if that would have been social media, those guys probably would have got life.
Yes.
I mean, just think about it. I mean, with the sensitivity and everything that's now. So they were very lucky to be back then.
Correct.
But talk about that. You talk to some of the parents. Some of those guys were first generational college guys, first generational guys that like myself, hey, I'm the first young man in my family that has a chance to get a college degree.
That's right.
All of that was ruined because of a decision or a choice to do something really dumb and just really have fun. Talk about how the parents felt about that.
Well, I mean, like I said, it was devastating for them because it was all laid out and, they beat the odds, if you would. Parents made tremendous sacrifice for those kids.
And it is a major sacrifice.
And a lot, I won't go into that personal so much, but a lot of them, this one mother, I mean, she made a lot of sacrifice doing stuff for her kid, her son at that time, high schooler, to get the things that, that she may not have been able to get when she was a kid, give him, as our parents say, a better life and all that stuff. So they checked all those boxes, man. They, these kids wasn't that hardcore inner city
No, they weren't hood kids.
Yeah, wasn't that better word?
For lack of a better word. They weren't the project kids. Yes. Carter, I was close to that. I went to Duncanville High School. Yes. Carter was 15 minutes.
Yes.
So these were mid-level, as they say. Mid-level kids.
And so these parents were proud parents. They work hard and all the stuff that you want to see parents doing and providing for their kid. They did all those things, right? And so these kids, why they was using fake guns, because if they were real thugged out, they would have
real guns.
Yeah, right?
Exactly.
But to them, it was just a joke. It was, let's see if we can get away with this. And people who were on the other side of those cash registers, they were okay with it happening. To be honest with you,
because some of them knew him.
Some of them did know him, and it was like, okay,
and that was that's where the I'm not gonna say the stupidity came from, but that was the level of entitlement that these guys had, because they were actually doing it in their own community. This is like right around the city.
Yeah, you know what? As you mentioned, social media. It's good that social media wasn't as big as like it is now, because they would have been even bigger stars.
Right.
And I think that was part of the problem was, I was told, because I wasn't living here at the time, that Carter High in those days were more popular than the Dallas Cowboys.
They were.
And
they were, quite frankly, because the Dallas during that time, Dallas was pretty sorry.
Yeah, exactly. And so probably teams were like, we need to put this high school team out there.
We need to get some of those guys. But here's the biggest thing, too, that I want to talk about, Greg, and I want to talk to, like I said, on this platform. I like to help and inform people if we can. Mm-hmm. Even though that happened years and years ago, it's still stuff like that kids are doing today, and not thinking that not only does this decision affect me, but it affects everyone around me and my family. Because here's the big thing, and that's something that people don't realize. Because I was fortunate enough to be in this area, and during that time, two things happened during that time. One, you got a scholarship, right? Yeah. To big time universities. Yes. And people don't know this, or they do know, but they don't talk about it. You was getting paid back then. Those guys had NIL deals before NIL, because those colleges were willing to pay guys big money back then under the table as far as boosters. Yeah. So parents went from, some of those parents, I would say, went from possibly getting bills paid, getting cars and all this stuff on the side, to putting up their cars in their houses to try to keep these kids out of jail.
That's a good point.
Talk about that a little bit, because that's the heartache part of it.
Yeah, because legal fees are extremely expensive.
Yes.
And so even though you're talking about middle class families, that means they had day-to-day, month-to-month bills. Yes. Right? They got their stuff and they're doing
some living check to check.
That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. They're living check to check. And so opportunity comes where, you get some see, back then though, guys, NIL didn't exist. So what Ray is really saying is some illegal money was going on. So I'm going to dance around that one, okay?
Oh, you ain't got to dance around. It's out there. SMU got the death penalty. There's a lot of people that got the death penalty for getting paid.
Yes. So it went on, okay? But you're right, to have, people ready to come bearing gifts, and now all of a sudden you're thinking about, I got to sell my car to try to keep my son out of jail. Yeah. That's a lot to take on. And it really was a letdown to the whole community. Yeah. Because the community was behind these guys, man. Everybody was behind Carter High School. And if you're wondering who Carter High School is, you've seen Friday Night Lights, the movie Friday Night Lights. Yes. I tell people, if you haven't heard of Carter High School, they're the team that was dressed in red that beat the Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, Odessa Perriman and all those guys. Yeah.
Exactly.
And tell them, you can go out and get Carter High. Yeah. It's still out there. Let's get paid a little bit on this.
There you go. I appreciate that.
It's still out there. You can go out and get Carter High. This is a story that I tell people, and I'll end it here, Greg, on this part of it, that this is a must-see for all athletes. Yeah. I don't care what level you're on. I don't care where you are now. This is a story. This is one of those never-ending stories because it's really all about choices and decisions and consequences. Yep. And when you think about that, this movie tells all about that. So tell where can we find Carter High right now?
Well, I mean, you can just Google it because it's in the hands of a distribution company.
Okay.
And so, but it's out there, man. It's been on Netflix, been on BET, Hulu. It's been on all those platforms. So just Google it and you'll see where it's at. It's kind of everywhere, which is good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Keep the money moving.
Yeah, no doubt. So now you go from that project, and that was a major project. I have to ask you about this because you're doing plays, and I've seen a couple of your plays. They're really, really good. I'm not just kidding about the Tyler Perry part of it. I mean, and you're good in those plays as well. But now you just mentioned a story about high school football and high school kids, and I gotta ask you, being a successful playwright, doing successful movies, executive producers, and all coaching.
Yes.
What made you now want to say, I want to scrap all of this, and I think there's a chance I want to get into coaching?
Now I'm at a school better known as SAGU. It's called Southwest Assemblies of God. The unique thing about it is that it's another NAIA school, and we're in the same conference as Texas College.
Wow.
So we play against each
other. So you get
to
see those same kids.
And that was the tough thing. We played them a couple weeks ago, matter of fact. I'm proud of them because they played hard.
Right.
They played really hard. They want to beat their old coach.
Of course.
So I respect them for that because we won the game. But my heart still goes out to those kids, man, because they deserve of scholarships. They deserve it to get what the other teams in their conference is getting. They deserve to get treated the same way. And quite frankly, they're not.
I found myself coaching and mentoring and giving back, and it helped me just as much as it helped the kids.
Oh, yeah.
Because it occupied a space in my mind that really hadn't been triggered in a while.
Correct.
Once you've been retired for a while, you still have those endorphins that want to fire off.
Yes.
And let's be frank, you love your wife, I love those endorphins don't fire off the same.
No.
You don't get to scream at your wife like you get to scream at the kids. And come. So how does that help you? How does that help Greg Ellis move forward with your anxiety and things like that? How does that help you as well?
Man, it's a continuation to be able to get back to what I love doing. That atmosphere of football, right? Just being out there, I don't get to go on the field. Have to remind myself, Greg, you don't have to be all tensed up to get ready for this game. You're not going to go hit anybody, right? And so that's a challenge. It proposes different challenges that I think fulfills us as competitors. And so now, as opposed to me, going ahead and trying to run this guy over, it's strategically trying to solve the problem of, okay, how do we continue to move the ball on offense? How do we figure out how to sack the quarterback if that team want to max protect?
Right.
So it's still problem solving in the arena of football, which is what all of us as football players had to figure out. Right. Right.
It was just as big mentally as it was physically.
Yeah, exactly.
So the physical aspect is out. But
right?
The mental part
the
gets
mental
bigger
part
now.
Gets bigger now, right? I mean, you on the island as a corner, you knowing, okay, I got Michael Irvin, have to play him this way, that way, and all the different kind of stuff. So we as coaches still get to play those kind of games, right? You're playing it on both sides of the ball because you, as the head coach especially, you got to do it for offense, defense, and your special team guys. Very, very fulfilling, man. Very fulfilling.
So you mentioned something within that fulfilling aspect of it. You mentioned something, competitiveness.
Yes.
You mentioned it gives you the opportunity to compete. And I want to ask you this because you're right here in Dallas. I'm in Dallas. And the incident that happened not too long ago on the Little League field with the gun incident. And where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line as a coach, as a parent, and as a player, as the whole competition thing comes in? Where do you draw the line from being competitive to being overbearing as a coach or as a parent? How do you feel about that?
Well, rule number one for me, everybody got to make it home. Meaning, this should not get to the level where we want to cross that line of what the rules say that we can do.
Right.
The rules in football say I can hit you hard as I want to hit you. legally.
Between those lines.
Between those lines.
Right.
Once you step off of that field of play, that has to be shut off. There shouldn't be any physical altercations outside of those lines, right? It's a rule that they have, and they still have to this day in the NFL. No NFL organization is allowed to have a firearm on that campus.
Right.
On that facility. Not one. None of us could.
Even in college.
Even in college, right? You can't. It's a reason. It's a reason for that. Because sometimes the emotions of the game can spill over outside of those lines. It shouldn't, but sometimes they do. And so you need that cool off period. And so if that gun is readily available as soon as you step outside of that lines, then sometimes that can be a dangerous thing. And I think that's what happened in that incident.
Welcome back to Crockett's Corner. I'm your host, Ray Crockett. I'm here with my guy, Greg Ellis, former top 10 draft pick of the Dallas Cowboys, who's done so much more off the field since his transition out of the league. And Greg, we've talked about coaching. We've talked about a variety of things, but something that's near and dear to my heart and your heart as well, because we both suffer from it. You suffer from anxiety. That's a mental health condition. I suffer from depression, anxiety, and some other things. You're doing something really special. The one movie I know in particular that you shot at my, look, let me give my lounge some love at Akai and at Musume.
There you go. I
got to give him some love.
There you go.
But that you shot there was dealing with mental health and kind of a spinoff of what you're going through, what I'm going through, and you guys are doing something really big. I want you to talk to the world about what you're doing and how you're giving back as well for the patients. It is Mental Health Month.
Yes.
And we suffer the most.
Yes.
People don't know that. We may not get the help the most.
Yes.
But African-American men suffer more with mental health than a lot of other, races do.
No, you're so right. And the sad thing about it is incarceration. Everybody knows, African-American males make up the large percentage of people who are incarcerated.
Right.
But the thing that hasn't been taken into consideration is those people who are incarcerated as minor or black men, their mental state. And so a lot of them are in there, probably should be in there because of mental illness that they suffer from, that led them to commit and do some things they should not be doing. And the system just find a way, as opposed to treat them, let's just put them in here.
Yeah, just lock them up.
Let's just lock them up. And that's been a big issue, if you would. But the name of the movie that we're doing is called My Dear. It enters the mental health world, if you would, by way of football. But it's not just football players who are affected by mental health. Exactly. But that was the vessel that I choose to enter into.
Because it's a vessel
health.
You know as
it's
well.
It's a vessel I know. And so this guy plays football. Seems like, he has everything in the palm of his hands. When he retires from football, he has a wife, one daughter. When he retires from football, the wheels fall off. His family gets turned upside down.
Man, you tell my damn story.
Yeah. No, you know what? You know what? And so many people feel like, man, that's my story. You telling my story.
Yes.
And a huge inspiration, if you would. It's not his story neither. I don't know his story well enough. That's Junior Seau.
Yes.
I know you know Junior. I've never met Junior. But from what I heard, was an amazing guy. Yeah. And what I would call Mr. NFL.
Yeah, for sure.
And we all know, once he finished, shortly after that, he, ended his life. And so, prayers still to his family and that type of thing. But, I felt like something needed to be done. And, I do what God has anointed me to do. And that's, write stories and make movies about it. And so that's what we did in this case. But like I said, it's not just the person who is dealing with the mental issues, but it's that person's family, because it affects more than just the one person.
Yes.
And so I want people to see and understand how it affects the dynamic of a whole family structure, not just the one person, if you would.
The full nucleus, because that's the one thing that I suffered with the most. And it's great that you're telling this story, and I want to talk about what you guys are doing as far as the travel. You guys are actually traveling around and talking about this story and having a whole panel and everything.
Yes. We're setting up a tour right now as we speak. We did our first one in Irving. And to be honest with you, it morphed into something that I didn't really see coming. I mean, I truly did not see this coming. And so I'm sitting there, and I was one of the panel's guests as well. The people that helped me put this together suggested I be a panelist. I don't have doctor around my name, but the other 4 people did, but I was there. And so, man, it really morphed into something and benefited so many people.
Man, this is, and I want to say this in closing as we close the show, because I always like to end the show with for myself. You know, I'm a spiritual guy. You know that as well. Yes. And what I hear in this is something that I see all the time in the Bible, and people. There's a lot of people out there that chase money and chase, you know, the provisions before they do what you're doing. Yeah. The first thing it says, you have to have a vision.
Yes.
And if you have a vision, then God will provide the to that.
That's right.
And what you just said was you had a vision of helping people, and it morphed into something bigger.
Yes.
So that's God providing the provision.
Yes.
So if you out there and you want to help people, just go do it, man. Just find your purpose, and the provision will show up. And I want to thank you, Greg, for coming on and enlightening Crockett's Corner. Your story is amazing, man. I told you I wanted to have you on the show. I hope it was fun for you.
It was great.
Because it was definitely fun for me. And look, we're gonna check. Tell me the name of the website again so they can come.
Yep, Getting My Help.
GettingMyHelp.com.
Yep.
GettingMyHelp.com is the website. And I want to thank you guys for checking me out. And you know what I'm gonna tell you. Next week, pull up on me. Because you know it's going to be a hot show, because Crockett's Corner, the block will always be hot. We'll see you next week. Watch them break them all. Just a style up on them boys, just a different cloth. Line them up and knock them down, that's what I'm saying. Rookie season, but ain't come to do no playing. I'm the rookie of the year, yeah. Say I'm the rookie of the year, yeah.